So what I want you guys to do is to rank the top 3 storylines this past year in Canadian soccer. And there's been so much, right? It's been a crazy year as far as news, both good and bad, right? And there's certain things that just jump to the forefront. So we'll start with you, Jordan. We'll get your top 3 and we'll use that as a starting point and for conversation. And then we'll kind of add our own opinions as the show progresses, right? So top 3 storylines for Jordan Wilson from the Canadian football zeitgeist in 2024.
Very difficult because I think there's like 5 big stories. There could even be more, but I think I guess the biggest one, which is probably the bright spark for the year, is Jesse Marsch coming in. And I owe him an apology. I wasn't slating him. I was just like at the point where the men's national team was at, where they weren't really playing on the same wavelength. I was like, you need someone that will come in and maybe have a plan B. But the way that he's ignited the team and everyone's just looks happy to play for Canada and wants to work hard, that has to be the bright spark. I don't want to get into all the madness, but it has to be the biggest story of 2024. Like Drone Gate, like when you think back of the Olympics 4, 8, 12 years from now, people are going to think about this. Like this was such a huge story. I also would say the flip side of it is just the players, the fact that you start with a -6 deficit and actually make it out of the knockout. That was it, like incredible. Like when you look at the situation, I was like, there's no way they're getting out. And I'm an optimistic guy. I'm like, that you can't start with basically 2 games behind, but the way that they rallied together, Vanessa Gilles' press and also just the goal against France, like that is stuff that's gonna live for a while, absolutely. And then I'll go a different route for me. That was top is we've been harping on center backs for the men's national team for a while. And to find like hidden gems or people that are overlooked. Cornelius, I've seen play so many times. I've trained next to him and I was like, he's a good player. But to see him just come out of his shell, be a leader, and Jesse Marsch just like light a flame under him and he's just taking off, that's to be a bright spark too. So those 3 stick out to me for sure.
I love that center back take because, you know, be it Derek Cornelius or Moise Bambito, who really kind of came from nowhere to be this starting center back in Ligue 1, a guy that's going to go to some big places. That's a massive part of this past year. But going back to the whole Olympics drone gate, and I don't want to dwell on this either, but let's start with you, Dubs. It's hard not to package it all together, right? The negativity, but you have to mention, despite the adversity, the performance of the team getting through that group, right, into the knockout rounds, the way the character the players played under that cloud. Do we package it together or are they separate things?
I think when you remember them, and I love how Jordan used footballing cycles to talk about how long ago or how long from now it'll be remembered. Like I would have said 5 or 10 years and he went 4, 8 or 12 years. Like he worked in footballing cycles, which I appreciated. But yeah, for me, I think it'll always be intertwined. It'll be hard to take the performances out from under the cloud of Drone Gate. But I think you have to. And I think that's what we've lost a little bit in the storytelling, is that performance or the individual performance, the Vanessa Gilles, like the words after they beat France, the way that team rallied, like the unwavering belief within that group. Like, I think that thread was lost a little bit, and that isn't lost on me. Like, that is something that we, I think collectively as the media should have kept talking about. And I mean, I think we touched on it a little bit in the coverage of the team and again, what they were up against coming into camp. We're going to have Vanessa Gilles on tomorrow. I'm going to ask her about it, what it was like almost to be free from the shackles of somebody. I think that, they had a really hard time, reconciling the fact that she led them to a gold medal, but then it was the ultimate act of betrayal from somebody that you had your full trust in. And then you find yourself not rudderless coming into those camps, because I think there's a clarity in the direction that they want to move ahead towards within that group, but you still don't have somebody at the helm. So what that must have felt like, to be in camp and to not really have a clear direction, but you're still able to tie the world champs. You're still able to end the year with a fucking massive exclamation point, beating South Korea 5-1. So I think that we can't forget those unbelievable performances, as I think we saw individuals emerge in a way of leadership, but also quality, but also collectively what this group continues to do when their backs are up against the wall. So that was for me, my number one. Can I do my
Go ahead, yeah.
three?
Sure.
So number one for me was the women's national team performance in that Olympics.
Was it? That surprises me.
Aside from drone gate.
Never thought that.
And then a moment, because remember we did this, I think already an exercise this year, like for the summer, but you wanted us to pick moments. So it's the performance, but it was Vanessa Gilles, like her words after that emphatic win against France. And then the men's national team, Copa America, everything that Jordan said about Jesse Marsh, but it was the fuck it, we're Canada, and Alistair Johnston's words, we belong here, the Kone scissor kick. Like that to me was the moment, like the arrival on the biggest of stages. And then my third is Footy Prime emerging as the preeminent voice of Canadian football. And the moment within that is Jimmy getting a new mic.
Yes, that was a huge moment, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
You have a mic? Oh, go on, Jimmy.
my third one.
This.
Yeah, but it's not on right now, I don't think.
Today. 52%, everyone.
What a guy.
It's better than the stapler he held up last time. Yeah, I've got my mic here. He held up a stapler.
It was a good move, the stapler move, though.
That was a big moment.
For a sec.
As too was Craig getting his internet sorted out as well.
Nice.
People forget about the years of Craig's internet issues we had. So that was a big moment.
That was my computer. Just couldn't figure shit out fast
It was
enough.
a good bit. We had a good bit going for a while, though.
We did. It was a bit frustrating. All right, Craig, so you've heard from Dubs and from Jordan there. Do you have any others in your top three?
Well, I mean, it's kind of the good, the bad, and the stupid. I think the stupid was the drone gate. You know, it's just absurd, really, what we saw there happen. But so many positives with Jesse Marsh, that we talked about, Bombito, Cornelius, and competing with the very best in the world and not looking out of place. I thought they were absolutely outstanding. Jesse Marsh has taken the team to a different level, and like Jordan, I wasn't absolutely 100% sure about the hire, but I am now. I'm totally buying into what he's doing. He's doing a fantastic job for the national team.
Was that bigger than the Copa performance, or again, is that all wrapped in together?
I think it's all wrapped into one.
Yeah.
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 Fantastic performance from the national team. It's amazing how much has gone on, though, eh?
Well, I was going to say, I put a little list together, right? And there's so many things this past year
So many things.
all have a good right to be in the top three storylines.
And thank God for Footy Prime content.
Yes, thank Christ. It's been an easy year for us, content-wise, right? I've been searching too much. It's been all some kind of bullshit. Jimmy, what was your top pick?
I think you guys covered it all. Myself, on the other hand, I believed in Jesse Marsh as soon as he was hired, and I thought he was going to be wonderful, which he is. And he's done a hell of a job. I think the Copa's got to be up there for me. I thought that was a wonderful moment just to see how we could compete with the rest of the world. We didn't look out of place, and I love to see the direction and just how quickly everybody bought into what Jesse Marsh was preaching. And I think we all know, especially Jordan, Stacks, and Dubs, you know, it always takes a little bit of time to buy into what a manager's preaching. You're always trying to figure them out, thinking, is this going to work, or is that going to work, or is this guy full of shit? But you could see that the players were seeing the rewards right away, and they bought into what he wanted to implement. So that for me was a great moment. I think the Canadian men's national team is a lot further ahead than what was expected. I think they probably thought it was going to take a little bit longer. The Olympics, the women, I thought were absolutely brilliant. Just to see how resilient they were and what they overcame during that period at the Olympics. I thought that was a wonderful moment for me, just to see them all come together and block all the noise on the outside, and more or less saying, you know what, fuck everything on the outside. We're going to get through this, and we're going to make our own statement here. And they did. And that was a wonderful time for me. And I think another one was, and it kind of flew under the radar a little bit from everything that went on this year. And for me, it was Poku getting his move from the CPL, and what a story that was. A young guy playing local football, coming in into fours, playing different positions, found his role, and ends up getting a great move over to Europe, to Molenbeek. So that for me, I thought was a great moment. It showcased what the CPL is all about, in developing, giving young Canadian players a platform to move on to the next level. So that was a great moment for Poku, for the league, and Canadian soccer.
Yeah, Jordan, that's a great point, isn't it? It's all been about the pathway and how you get that pathway to bigger and better leagues for these players. That's why the CPL exists, right? So to increase and improve Canadian football. Kwasi Poku was a great story, kind of emerged this year, right? Changed position, started scoring goals, gets the big move. You mentioned Bambino, we mentioned Cornelius, of course. Maybe there's going to be a managerial shift at some point as well. But from the CPL perspective, again, seeing Cavalry get their championship finally, was it a great year, a big year for the CPL, the most defining year to date?
Yeah, I think so. But I think, I think when I think about the CPL, I mean this with all respect, a little bit behind, because if there's two more teams, there's more stories like that. Like, I think you're starting to see in year 6 what the league was all about. It's all about, I always said, like, young players, or maybe a player like me who wants to come back and like end their career at home and really build it up there. And you have like the Dom Samuels that's moving up from forwards, those guys the Kyle Beckers that we all know that really push it forward. But it's really made for Kwasi Poku, the guys that before would go to school or maybe try in Europe and have to go to Croydon, like I said, playing 13th division. Like, they'd have to do that, right? Because there's nowhere else to play. But now it's like you could just go to Hamilton. You could be from Brampton and go play in Hamilton and be under someone like Bobby Serino and some really work. So you're gonna see more stories like that. But I'm with Gaff. Like, to get the move that he did for the amount that he did at this time. I think the only like downside to maybe that is if that deal was done 2 weeks later, I think Forge beat TFC. But that's one of those things as well. You can't play a player and then he gets injured. But I look back on the season with Forge, and the trouble could have been in contention if they had Kwasi Poku. They didn't have a 9 in it, and it killed them. But the story is a great story for sure.
Who's going to be the Kwasi Poku of 2025?
Ooh, big question. We probably don't even know this player.
Yeah,
like it's probably someone coming in. I mean, what I think the thing about Kwasi is like he took his time, right? Like, he lost last year. He was the runner-up for Young Player of the Year. He's taken his lumps. He's got injured in the first game of CONCACAF. Like, there are stories like that in the CPL. I'm just very grateful for a league of 8 teams that young players can come and really hone their craft. And then NSL too. Like, when I was thinking about the list, I could have made a top 10. Like, there's so many great stories going into this year. We didn't even get into TFC coaching.
Oh, we will.
Maybe we do it. It's tough to pick a top 3, but this year has just been a lot of good stories. But then, to Craig's point, the stupid stories is just memorable ones for 2024. Like, you think back, like you just won't forget them.
Yeah, that is the word, isn't it? Memorable. I'm surprised Dubs didn't mention NSL in her top 3. I mean, for me, it was in my top 3, Dubs. Just so you know.
You're full of shit.
No,
it wasn't.
Okay, it was really
What a
close.
suck.
Written down, Dubs.
It is. I mean, that's a defining moment for Canadian soccer, not to mention women's soccer, obviously, right? I mean, next year maybe it'll be the number 1 story. But the fact that finally we got a name for the league. I mean, Project 8 was great for a while, but we needed a league. NSL comes around, Northern Super League. We've got the names of the teams now. Signings happening finally as well. For women's soccer, okay, Drone Gate, I understand. That's the heavy, dark cloud that hangs over the year. But I tell you what, the sun is shining, and it's called the Northern Super League.
Yeah, it's fucking great. And I mean, I think it speaks to the year that we've had, though, in football and soccer in Canada, that it does fly under the radar a little bit because it's momentous. It's huge when you think about what it means for Canadian soccer moving forward. And I say Canadian soccer deliberately. I've chosen those words carefully because it's not just about women's football. It's about setting standards in Canada that for this next generation, yes, my daughter can play, or this new generation of girls have something to aspire to. They can play professional football at home, but it's also for their counterparts in the schoolyard, that boys grow up understanding that this is something that girls can do as well. And that's massive. And it's about time Canada got on board with it.
I also consider what it's like to have a soccer mom, but then to have Amy Walsh as a soccer mom. Can you imagine? Like,
Yeah.
we all had our parents cheering for us on the sideline, but when your mom can actually go, hey, you fucking this is what we're doing properly and not properly out there, and you have to listen to them.
I am not that
Yes,
person.
you are.
No, I'm not. No.
Amy, we did 2 games together, and I will say that you were coaching, you were a linesman, you did everything. You did it all. Your commentary was A1. That's what we should be playing. It's for the full 90 minutes. Just
That's what should be on air.
I
Yes,
would love to be in the car with her kids after a bad match.
Do you think it's just silence? Dub's just staring ahead, like, and the kids know. Oh God, it's on
Steam coming out of her ears.
It's in the mail here, and she's just fuming with fury.
Yeah. When we get home,
I was talking
no, but look.
I'm so goddamn embarrassed right now. I can't believe it.
It's funny because I mentioned earlier, Sharms, I said that Jimmy's the guy we come in at halftime. I could see when we played poor, he was the one just looking at like it's not that hard. You take your left foot, you put it top corner, you curl it in. Like it's not that difficult. But then Amy is just all passion. You gotta tuck in, step up. Like your commentary was full on when we watched the game. Like press. I was like, kid, they're not pressing. You're yelling press, and they're in Spain. They can't hear you. But you really were yelling, and
they could.
And
Maybe they did.
I heard you.
No, my kids know, and also I coach the U10. It'll be U11 boys this year, which both my twins play in. All the kids know that it's the intangibles, the non-negotiables is their attitude and their effort. And if that's not there, then they'll hear from me. And it's not swears, but it's just reminders. And it's jogging over to the parents and reminding them, we want to hear from you, but we don't want to hear from you talking about the refs shit calls or like kids on the other teams. Like we want to hear you just cheering for the kids. Like that's what I do. Like I go talk to the parents, remind them why we're here, and tell the kids as well that like 100% effort all the time. And then other than that, we won't be disappointed in them.
Nice.
Do you ever say, do you know who the fuck I am?
Occasionally.
I would. Yeah.
No, of course not.
She wears her Canadian kit. She's like Jimmy pointing at her shirt.
A Hall of Fame hat, or whatever the hell they give you. Do they give you a hat? They should give you a hat.
We used to get hats, like legitimately. Yeah. Like my first caps, we got a cap.
Yeah, the actual
and then they
caps.
Stopped that. Yeah.
Yeah, we got those medals after, didn't we?
Yeah, and like little plaques.
Did the parents kick you off Team Snap yet?
No, I'm the person who is really quiet. I turn the notifications off on Team Snap. I don't want them.
So you're like the opposite to the dark web with us then?
Yes. Very active.
Very vocal.
Mm-hmm.
All right, back to the year that was. Going back to the women though, and I'm with you. I think the performance was fantastic. But to play the contrarian here, had they gone deeper in the tournament, it would have been an even bigger story. It's amazing they got out of the group with a 6-point penalty, right? Amazing. But they did, crash out in the quarterfinals to Germany, albeit on penalties. I get that. But I think that's why, to me, that slows down a little bit, because as much as it was a great story and they deserve so much better, they didn't go deep in the tournament, right? Which might be really unfair, but I've got to play the contrarian now and again. You mentioned John Herman. Well, Wonga, let's get your three, actually. As the guy that's learning about the sport.
Yeah, so my third was Northern Super League and CPL with a great cavalry win and a great event. That was the second time we were at the CPL final, and it's the second time that it did not disappoint. It was fantastic, and they did such a great job. So the paradigm that the CPL has created, if Northern Super League can grab a little bit of that, but a lot of, I'd say, even, better timing. One of the problems with CPL started during the pandemic. They could be 2 years up. Not to bash anything, but OneSoccer going alone as a, hey, this is which direction we're going. We're fighting Media Pro. That's kind of what I see. And I'm like, oh, this isn't good. This isn't united. And so that was Northern Super League. I think they're doing things all the right way. And I think they're, they use that analogy. It's the first one through the door that gets all the bullets. Maybe the CPL was the bullets. But take what they can gather from the CPL and the Canadian Premier League, use that as, hey, we're local, win local first. And I think we're trying to do that with Footy Prime, win Canada first. That's what we do. And then we'll take it to the next heights. So that's my number 3. Sorry, that was long. Number 2, Drone Gate. And all of it's not just Drone Gate, but it's all the consequences of Drone Gate. Bev Priestman fired. Herdman resigns. I'm putting quotes on that. And then Olympic hope with the women's team. What a redemption arc. Even if Sharman says they crash out, I don't see losing to Germany as a crash out. Anyways, I'm just saying that to your honorable mention. Kevin Blue calling Footy Prime the most important podcast in the world.
I don't know what you're talking about, Wonga. I don't know what you're talking about.
Footy Prime is the most important podcast in the world.
You mean that one? That's the one.
That's the one.
It's so.
And my number 1, and I'm gonna give you a date, and you guys guess it. January 22nd, 2024.
Oh, was that Canada Soccer? Was that when
Alison Walker resigns?
Oh, was that?
And the reason why I chose that was because all of these other stories came out, how Kevin Blue and Peter Agruso were going to handle Drone Gate, how it put people to the fire immediately. And there was a level of, is this going to be more shit show or some serious look at our sport and our NGO and all of that kind of thing? It really was an important time. And I have no idea. Best wishes to Alison Walker. I'm not sure why she resigned. Maybe she took a look and said, this dumpster fire is not something I want to be a part of, or, personal reasons, whatever. But what it did is it added to the nonsense, if I can call it nonsense, but then allowed people to go, hey, this is the bottom. This is where we are. We are now in the sewer. We can only go up from here. And it seems like Kevin Blue has kind of righted the ship, and perhaps we're in a better place than we were 10 months ago, 11 months ago.
He was wearing a fire vest, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was wearing that fire vest to put out that fire. For sure. But you're right. I mean, listen, in comes Kevin Blue, and he was perhaps without Kevin Blue, they didn't hire Jesse Marsh. I don't know how those negotiations went, right? He got the money from the MLS teams, right, to finance Jesse Marsh's salary, for example. So it's kind of a boring pick saying, Christ, a general secretary, CEO is the biggest story. But if you look at what happened since he arrived, it's a big moment for sure. Sometimes, it's a trade you don't make, right? That's the best trade, and maybe that's the Alison Walker situation. You find Jesse Marsh through Kevin Blue, yada yada yada. So I like those. Well, kind of boring, but you made valid points though. The valid points. Actually, Craig, I'm surprised Craig didn't put the whole media landscape in his top 3, with the whole Media Pro, OneSoccer, CSB, Rogers, Bell. The CRTC hearings. I mean, it's fucking boring as well, but it's really important as well.
Don't get me started.
Still haven't got resolution yet. We're still waiting for the resolution, aren't we?
We are.
Yeah.
Hopefully, in 2025, we get a resolution and there's a linear channel. That has to happen. But Craig, do you want to weigh in on it, or are we better to skirt around this issue right now?
Yeah, I feel for Media Pro. They came in and they invested in Canadian soccer. The Spanish group, they worked it as hard as they possibly could, and they had nothing but roadblocks. Rogers, Bell, and the duopoly that is made it very, very difficult for them. And in the end, they couldn't take it, and they pull out. And it's a real tragedy, in my opinion. I think it's too bad, because they were the only ones that were willing to invest in this country, and they're the ones that get pushed out.
When were the Heritage Committee meetings? Were they this year or last year? Dubs, do you remember? I think
last year.
Was it 2023?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What happened to this year? How did this year? It couldn't have been 12 months. This year it has to have been shorter. It's crazy, right? I mean, at one point I was thinking, when did Nick Bontis leave? Like, honestly, to me, these years just roll into each other at the moment. It's kind of crazy. Jordan, you mentioned TFC. I want to get Jimmy's thoughts on this as well. But the whole John Herdman situation, I mean, that is enormous, I think, when you look at where he was in Canadian football, how he was revered, respected, the golden boy, right? But for so long. And then, again, collateral from Dronegate, it's probably even unfair to call it collateral, central to Dronegate, what was John Herdman. And here we are now, and he's looking for a job. And we don't know if he's even allowed to have another job for the time being, depending on what comes out of this, FIFA, Canada Soccer ethics and discipline committee.
So much to say. I really don't even know where to begin with the John Herdman story. The thing I will say is I think he got found out a little bit this year how difficult it is to actually manage a group when you play league play. When you meet once every couple months and you can get a group that is before their prime, you could say, like getting Jonathan David, Alphonso Davies, and like people ask, is he a hero? Like, will you ever look back on John Herdman? I'm like, for his time with the women's program and the men's program, like you have to tip your hat off to him. But I just think it's a different ball game trying to be the head of a TFC job with Insigne and Bernadeschi. And for me, not a huge talented group. When I watched TFC, Jim, I remember when you signed with the Frosted Tips. I remember the time. I looked at TFC and I was like, oh, like ballers, like Mo Adu. Like they're just players that like, yo, these guys are, can play. No disrespect. But then you look at the TFC now, I'm like, there are still obviously some players, but there are also some players on the team I'm like, CPL caliber. There are. To get a John Herdman who just tactically, for me, still has a lot to learn, doesn't really have his like true identity of how he wants to play. He's a motivator, and I think that gets you so far. But when you actually have to solve problems within a season, it gets very difficult. And then you have these meetings and huddles mid like center pitch and trying to just sort out things. You lose the room quick. It's very difficult to manage a squad, and you need people around you. I know he has his disciples on the side, but how many people are actually getting Insigne, Bernadeschi, everyone to buy into what he's doing? It was much easier on the national team scale because they were hungry. But to get these superstars to go and do it, I think it was tough. I think you see a situation too. The last thing I'll say is like you bow out before you crash out, and that's what it is. The resigning part. Do I have anything substantial to say that, I know the reason why he did it? But how it looks is like, yeah, you bow out before you crash out and burn. And I mean, whoever takes this job next to it's still an uphill battle for sure.
That's really well said, Jimmy. I know you got some thoughts.
I've said my thoughts many a time, so it's
nice. Well, you've got another platform now. I think actually you may have missed the show after John left. Pretty sure you went on the show. Have your thoughts changed at all?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Let me ask you both something, because something you said, Jordan, made me think about it. Do you think as a motivator, his pedigree coming in, yes, he was unproven at the club level, talking about Herdman, do you think he ever had the buy-in of those superstars and then he was found out? Or do you think they always questioned him and he was going to have to prove himself at every turn?
Well, I think that's a great question. I think when you see wee little Insigne jump up and hug him,
you just call him wee little Insigne.
Yeah, the wee little, like he can go through your legs, like wee little. But he jump on Herdman. You're like, oh, these guys are friends. At some point it wasn't gonna take much to have Insigne be Insigne. And this is really not like you could slate him because obviously the buy-in for me just won't be there for any coach that comes in. Like he's just not a guy that's gonna go and like track back buy into a team. He's about himself, but that's also what you paid for. And to answer your question, I just don't think it was ever there. I just think when things were going okay and there was wins in the beginning and there was that honeymoon period, that everything else was ignored. It's easy when you're winning or getting results for everyone to be good. It's when you lose 2 in a row, you really see the character in the locker room. And I can count on one hand for TFC, characters in the locker room, like players that are lifting other players' heads up, like saying, let's get back to it. And that's not enough. With a league that's going to be 30 teams next season, like you need 80, 90% of characters in that locker room. You can't have 5%. You can't have the minority. You can't have 15% of your group saying, hey, let's go and try to make things happen. And then a John Herdman that's running around trying to motivate and it's just falling on deaf ears. You could see on the body language of players, like Jim mentioned it earlier, like if someone's full of, I said I wasn't going to swear on your show, I know that you're allowed, but full of SHIT, you could see it. You can see it on someone.
Jordan.
Nah, I
Say
can't.
it.
My mom's watching.
Yeah. It's okay to spell it.
Yeah, you can spell. That's what we do in my house. Yeah, I get spanked if I really, and now I'd get probably thrown down and tackled if I swear. But you can see it. I think early on, players are like, we don't know this guy. Like he has no solutions how we're gonna play. He doesn't know football. You saw that early with TFC players, and specifically the big dogs on their team. They looked at him and just said, This guy doesn't know what he's saying to me.
Did you see the Bernadeschi Instagram posts over the weekend? And it's nothing new. I mean, he listen, he's a good-looking guy. He knows it, right? But there's this video of him. He's in Turin. He's going to Juventus, right? And it's like this love letter almost to Juventus, back where he belongs. He loves it, right? And I'm thinking, what footballer in the fucking world is allowed to do that without hearing it from his own fans? You belong to another club. I don't care if it's in a different continent, a different league. It's irrelevant. Show some respect to the club that you play for and paid to play for. To go to another club, forget the history, and to put that kind of like, oh, this is where I really belong. I love it. To me, it's almost unforgivable. It really is, and it shows really the true devotion to Toronto FC from these guys.
Sharms, I'm going to put it back on you now. You're the manager of the club. You pulled Berna in. What do you say to him?
Well, when they get a manager?
No, you're the manager.
I say to him, do you want to be here or not? Like, it seems to me that you have no interest in being here, that you got your true love is elsewhere, and I can't count on you. That's what it tells me. And I tell him. What would you say?
I would just say, how was your trip? Now let's get to work.
So I'm making too much of this, is what you're saying?
No, look, everybody's got a connection with a club that you played for, and a love and a passion. You know, it's even if I go back to Forrest, you know, I love going back in, seeing everybody that works at the club, seeing the old players. You know, that's a connection. It's a love affair that you have with a club.
Sure.
You know, you can see with Berna, that's his club. When he goes back, he knows everybody. He's saying hello to everyone. He has an emotional connection to the organization.
I think it's sexual.
Yeah.
You see the Instagram post. I did a cold shower afterwards.
Well, that's only because you find Verna really handsome and attractive.
Have you seen the post? Have you seen the pictures he posts? That's all I'm saying, right? I mean, they're like,
I have to go look now.
These are not Sears glamour shots, okay? These are like, high-end photographers taking perfect pictures, getting just the right lighting. Yeah, I'm just saying.
Sharms is coming out of the virtual studio.
Self-promoter as well.
You got something to tell us, Sharms? It's okay. Tony and your daughter will be okay with it. They're open. They're progressive.
Yeah.
No, I just thought it was a bit much. That's all.
Yeah, you sort of save that for your end of your career when you're doing that, but not when you're playing for Toronto SC making millions of dollars.
Well, he gets paid in USD. Yeah, he gets paid in USD. Remember, his purchasing power in Canada has just gone up by 10%. With the Canadian loonie going down against the USD, he should be reminded about the economics of scale in Canada and how he's killing it here.
It's all optics, right? It's just optics, right? I mean, listen, we understand what's going on back home in Toronto, right? It's a shitstorm. Club's falling apart. No coach. I think the staff's left now as well. It's a complete gong show there, right? And your best player, and he is the best player, making the second most money on the team, a guy that could be part of the solution, I think. I'm not sure whether he will be, but could be, and he's good enough, obviously. Needs to kind of be a little smarter, I think, and for the fans of Toronto FC to say, listen, I'm with you guys. I love you. Yeah, sure, I've got a connection. We will understand you've got connections, Jimmy, to your previous clubs, of course, but don't throw it in the faces of your fans back on. That's all I'm saying.
I agree, Shams. Do you think there's anyone that can get all those like Berna and Insigne to buy in? Do you think that's possible for 2025?
Berna maybe, but not Insigne. That's got. I mean, I don't know. Would that be the big story for TFC next year? That storyline. I hope not. Hopefully, it gets solved quickly. It has to get solved quickly. It's just a distraction at this point. You can't rebuild with Lorenzo Insigne, I don't think. But as discussed, it's very difficult to get rid of him.
And then Berna's getting linked as well with Panathinaikos and Olympiacos. So
yeah,
we'll see if they move him on. Which I'm sure with the club, if the right money comes in, I think they'd be willing to let him go.
Staying with MLS, I mean, as far as big stories, Vanni Sartini being fired from Vancouver, and then the big story, Craig, late in the year about the team being put up for sale. That's huge. That's teetering on the edge of top 3, surely.
Yeah, in the disappointing category. I mean, I'm really concerned about the Whitecaps and what the future is for that club. It would be an absolute disaster if they left Vancouver. All the history that they have. I hope the new owners come in and they keep them in Vancouver. But I'm not 100% convinced that's going to happen.
Do you think the fact that they're responsible for some of Jesse Marsh's salary is like a deal breaker down the road for potential owners? They're like, I'm all in. Oh, wait a minute. No. I don't subscribe to that.
I think it's a big problem, though, right? For their search for a manager. Has to be. Yeah. Well, you want to get a good name, a big name, an accomplished manager who's looking at that club and where's the stability? Who knows if it's even in Canada a year from now, right? 2 years from now.
It doesn't look that way.
No, it doesn't
look that way, which is sad.
If they do leave, and it won't be next year, I don't think. But if it's announced, I mean, not to get ahead of ourselves here, but that'll be the big story for 2025. Unless Canada win a trophy.
You look at the big cities in MLS, like this 30, well, next season they'll be 30, right? And you go through all these places and states, and you're like, big cities, you're like, okay, the one that's missing, and I hate that could happen, but Vancouver Whitecaps to Las Vegas, like that for me, when I look at all of that, I'm like, oh,
makes a lot of sense.
There's so many people that are like, oh, you have to go to Canada. Like some people have to use their passport. Like it just seems like an inconvenience to the rest of us. We're like, oh, there's 3 cities. We should have more maybe in the MLS. But for Americans, I feel like you're looking at it like, yeah, Las Vegas. There's other places you can put that team, which is sad. But it seems like a reality soon.
God, this show's getting quite depressing, isn't it?
It's our 750th show. How about
That's
that?
depressing. That's really depressing.
Okay, I'm going to make a prediction here. Whitecaps sell. They move. Kerfoot buys Vancouver FC. Rob Friend takes his franchise to Kelowna.
Whoa.
Where he's from.
A lot of moving parts, Gaff. But I like it.
Yeah.
And Kerfoot builds a small 8,000 seat stadium.
Jimmy's playing chess, not checkers.
He's thought this through.
Yeah.
Well, then Kerfoot can
move my knight.
Hold his head high, right? Somewhat, saying, I still love Canadian soccer. I'm still committed to it.
And he's still committed to it as part of the Vancouver Rise ownership group, right? So why can't he build an 8,000 stadium as looking forward for the women's program?
Yeah.
And, promoting the game in this country and providing that much needed infrastructure.
Come on, let's get Greg Kerfoot on the show. And we can talk
Never
about his son.
happen.
I want to talk about his son, Alex Kerfoot, and his hockey career. And why he never quite panned out in Toronto. Good player. Swiss Army knife, could play anywhere, but never quite worked out.
Greg Kerfoot stays away from the media.
Mm-hmm. He does, doesn't he? He's very quiet. Smart. Yeah. Steve Nash is involved there as well, right? Ownership. Things to make.
Quite a payday, though.
Yeah, listen, we discussed last week. You buy the club for what, 60 mil, and you're selling for 600 or they're approx. You understand why? Who could really, dispute their reasons? Come on. If you do, you're just lying to yourself. Come on. Are we missing anything else from the last year? Anything?
Sinclair really hit international.
Oh, shit, Sinky.
Right?
Craig, good
Sinky.
one. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was a big deal.
It was a bloody big deal, mate.
Bloody big deal.
Yeah, part of that was 2023, right? Because the Sinclair farewell tour, that was the end. That was like a year ago, right? It was Christine Sinclair placed early December. Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Remember last year? Last year you had the boots hanging from the crossbar.
Yeah.
So cryptic.
Mm-hmm.
And then this year there's no boots hanging from a crossbar, but I forget the
end of an era.
Yeah. Yeah, you think it'd be a bigger story, but it's just because it's been inevitable for so long. Perhaps maybe that's why.
I feel like the big story was like 2023, right? When she had the tour. Like that's when it felt like goodbye.
The
Mhm.
goodbye, the long goodbye.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we knew she couldn't go on forever. I mean, it was coming.
Yeah. Wonga, what you were saying something there? Sorry.
Oh, just internationally, I was thinking about Liverpool, Klopp. That was only like at the
international.
end of last year, right? It was Klopp.
When it was announced, yeah, because it was leaking out. They had to get ahead of the story. Yeah.
Yeah, and just it just one of the best managers. It's kind of like a Pep. If he would resign, that's how I thought of Klopp, and I don't know if you guys did, but I thought that was a huge deal. And just once again, how MLS and Apple are crushing it. That was the other kind of big story for me.
Are they crushing it? I don't know.
Well, I think so. I think if you're getting two more teams, right, Jordan? Is that right?
One
more
San
team.
Diego.
San Diego.
But just the franchise fee are off the charts, and that's when you can talk about the growth of a league and the health of a league.
I think Apple's crushing it, and only because of my good friend Stax, who actually likes the app, and the fucking guy hates every app.
Actually, he has the app. He has the app. Number one,
And
that's the most impressive thing.
So for him to say, "I really like this," that means a lot.
I do really like it.
It's very convenient.
Amazing.
It's handy. Good shows, good quality production.
Yeah.
Right, and they've been good to us. Right, on Footy Prime, supplying guests on a pretty regular basis. Some of whom don't show up, but most of them do. My point being that MLS is definitely crushing it. The Apple. I wonder, are the subs where they want them to be? I suspect they're not.
I don't think they probably are. I don't. Yeah, but they've got a 10-year deal, and the long play is I think it's very positive.
Wasn't Media Pro a 20-year deal? Just saying.
Yeah.
There's always ways to get out of deals.
Yeah,
it was 10, wasn't it?
Was it 10? Was it 10? Was it 10 with a possibility of 20? Remember, it was all kind of murky. It was 10, but there was levers that could be pulled to extend the deal.
Well, the CSB deal was 10 years with Canada Soccer, right? Is that going to change?
Well, get this new modified version signed. Who the hell knows?
Yeah.
Right. They say it's going to 2037, right?
Yeah. That's that's for 20. Forget about trophies for Canada and new coaches for the women. The biggest thing for me for 2025 is, can we please just figure out this fucking labor CSB deal, get it done, get it over with. It's so boring for everyone. We've got a report on it. It's so important though as well. I understand that, but my God, can we not just focus on the games and the players for a whole year without any bullshit off the pitch? Please. Not happening.
It'd be nice. It'd be nice.
I mean, asking too much.
Nah, it would be nice. I'm with you. I think we love chaos a little bit too much, but I think it's just
it's time.
So cool. Yeah. we'll leave it there.
It's time. So listen, they're really close. We keep hearing this. They keep saying it's about 2 or 3 weeks out. They'll have this thing done, and then 2 or 3 weeks passes by and nothing's been done. So hopefully in the new year they'll announce something, and everyone's happy, or as happy as they can possibly be. All right. Well, listen, that is the end of the last regular Footy Prime of the year. Tomorrow, though, there's the final broadcast of 2024. Dubs, and you have a guest.
Yeah, and Rian will be on, who's been away doing fabulous things with the Welsh women's national team, who got drawn in a very, very competitive group, a group of death, you might say, for Euro 2025, but not job done, just to kind of make history. They're going to want to make some noise at that tournament. So Rian will be there, Claire will be there, and we're welcoming Vanessa Gilles. So we're very excited.
Awesome. Did I get ahead of myself? I did, didn't we? Because we have a show next week. We are actually doing a show next week.
We have one.
You're already on holiday.
Yeah, we're hoping to have Victor Montaliani on earlier this week. He couldn't make it in the end, but he is going to join us on Monday.
So people asking about Saudi Arabia will be asking those questions.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Unless CONCACAF hear this podcast and then realize you're not asking about Saudi Arabia. So if you want him, you're not asking that question. You got to surprise them, look in the weeds, Wonga, and then bah, there's a question. You're muted right now. It's just
exactly, Wonger. Exactly.
You're muted right now, Wonger.
Yeah. It's not what we do.
All right, so we are back next week. So forget everything I said there. Listen, Jordan, mate, thank you so much.
Thank
Really
you
enjoyed
guys.
this, man.
It's
We'll
fun.
get you back on as well if you want to come on. You don't have
No,
to,
for sure.
but we thoroughly enjoyed this, and we look forward to seeing you next year on OneSoccer.
Yeah, we need to
Love
hear
it.
more about Jordan Wilson and his transition from player to broadcaster, and the stories and how easy or hard it was, that transition. Because one of the things about Footy Prime, it's about, therapy, and we'll be your therapy, Jordan, if you need it.
I like it. Well, Jimmy's been my therapy here and there for sure. And shout out to him because he gave me a call as soon as I was retiring, which was a difficult time. But shout out to you, Gaff. I wish we could have ran it back and maybe done a season more. 2 seasons would have been enough. 2 would have been good.
That with Jimmy.
No, for me,
He probably would agree.
2 would have been enough. It was just we did one where I had the grumpiest man in football, Paul Stalteri, grumpiest man. But what a dynamic duo! But only a year. It's like by the time I really got to know you guys, it was over. I was like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
I thought even 2 years with Jimmy would be way too much.
2 years, perfect. Fair
enough.
Perfect.
It
would have been great.
My Steltier story is I met him a couple times. I met him a couple times with Craig, and Craig was reintroducing me, and he goes, "Yeah, I know you." I'm like, "Holy fuck!"
Great.
That's all it was. Yeah, I know you.
You get your name up?
Yeah, I'm like, all right. Okay, thanks.
Dan Wang.
Nice to see you
I
again.
love Dan Wang. All right, yeah. Jordan, thanks, pal. Really enjoyed this.
No
And
problem,
so
guys.
broadcast
Appreciate
tomorrow.
Thanks,
Make sure you
Jordan.
like this, you follow this, give us 5-star reviews, leave some comments on the YouTube. We're going to have a show next week, another show where we are going to wrap the year and look ahead to next year. And we're going to ask you to submit all the questions and comments you possibly can on our YouTube channel. So stay tuned for that. So thanks so much, and cheers very much for watching and listening. Bye-bye.